Hello, Cinda. I'm glad to see you again today.
Oh, I know, Sharon. It's always a pleasure.
It is. It's fun to sit and chit chat, and we do that really well. And we seem to just kind of move through some great ideas and fun things and interesting interchanges. I think that's kind of what women do when they get together with people that they like and love. So
I know. I think we women have a tendency to inspire each other and give permission for others to rise up and do what they feel they're called to do, and the
yeah,
courage and the backbone and the support. So, yeah, I
absolutely.
most certainly do that for you, and you do it for me. So
I know.
grateful.
I know it. When I look back, because I'm a bit older than you, and so and I come from a place of patriarchy where women were loved. They were loved so much that they were kept minimized, and we were also not encouraged to spend time with one another. We were really, really busy cooking and having babies. And what I'm and of course I love my babies, I love my kids, but what I'm so beginning to understand is the roots that women create and into the earth, that root of sisterhood, that rootedness of sisterhood, and how that is a critical, I'm experiencing anyway, a really critical place of our own inspiration and growing our own tree and plant. And so I'm glad to be holding root systems with you, my friend.
I love that. That reminds me of of planting our feet in the soil and
Yes.
supporting each other, and and women coming together to save self and planet. So
Uh-huh. Exactly. So, now what we're doing today is we're doing a interesting and valuable new piece of information from an interview we did before. And it reminds me another thing I find in my own life is as I'm living, I'm moving forward with my living, doing what's in front of me. And often I don't know why I'm guided that way or why it shows up. And up the road a ways, I look back, I understand. So I live forward, I understand backwards. It gives a different view. And so I'm just going to set up the experience we talked about in one of one of our conversations about your time with your family, a traditional vacation once a year. And this was a couple of years ago. And you're on this 12-mile hike up to a lake you've gone to before. You have a lot of family members. You know how to do this walk and to be together. You start late in the day. It's a hot day. You don't take enough water. Didn't know you wouldn't have had enough water, but you didn't. And now it's time to go back down the hill. And in going back down the hill, everybody's watching out. You're with a group of youngies, and you have some older folk behind you. And you begin to feel like, I think I need to step off the trail. Take it from there, Cinda. And just kind of, short synopsis.
right, because I know if people really want to know the story in detail, they can find that previous interview. But I stepped off the trail and told everyone to continue on without me, and I wasn't feeling well, really lightheaded and dizzy. And it got to the point where I was really afraid that if I passed out, my aunt and uncle would have to decide what to do with me. So in a decision of clarity, what I thought was brilliant is I would just cut straight down the mountain instead of walking along these switchbacks that were taking you back and forth, and you felt like you weren't making any progress quickly. So I just decided to cut through the brush and go straight down. What ended up happening is I slid down a ravine and found myself in an overgrown section where a creek ran under this overgrown brush. What was incredible for me is that I was finally in shade. I had plenty of water, ice cold mountain water. I laid in the creek, I drank and I drank, I cooled myself off, I giggled, and it was so, here I am. But then I realized I was in this really steep ravine, and it was basically really difficult for me to climb out. And so I would follow the creek down, try to climb out. And one attempt, I slid back down the ravine, twisted my ankle, and fell back into the creek. And in doing so, I really injured myself. I found out later what had happened is I had dislocated my kneecap in the twist, fell forward, and my two bones then hitting a rock. And I broke a chip off my kneecap and a chip off my femur bone, split my leg open at the kneecap. And when I straightened my leg, I guess my kneecap popped back into place. So all I know is that I fell forward, looked at my leg, saw my bone of my kneecap through my split skin. It starts to bleed. I stand up. I'm like, I'm okay. I'm okay. This is going to be okay. And then proceeded to try to find another way out. So I go into detail about that, but as I'm stumbling along, I start to talk to the angels. I start to talk to a deceased uncle who had gotten lost on a trail many years before, and they never found him. They found his remains a year after. And I started to talk to him and asked him to help me. But the reason why we're talking now is because a few weeks ago, an article came out in the paper that there was a local man who was on a hike up to that same high mountain lake, and he he didn't return. And there was a search for his body. He had taken his dog. They found his dog. They did a search and they found his body off a ravine, and he was unfortunately dead by the time they found him. So when I read that article, my uncle that was on the hike with me sent that article to me, and I read it, and the reaction that I had was so unexpected. It broke me for a second. It made me realize how serious what had happened to me was, and how fortunate it was that I was able to find my way out. So then I sat there in silence after I had my breakdown. I sat there in silence and I was trying to figure out, how did this happen? How is it that this experienced hiker, this hunter, this man who knows this trail like the back of his hand, how is it that he couldn't survive, and yet me, not in shape, being stupid, not carrying enough water, that I, even in injury, was able to get out of it without issue. And since I don't know his story and I can't tell it for him, and I really don't know the circumstances, all I could do was focus on me. And what was it about that time, lost in this ravine along this creek where no one knew where I was, where no one could see me because everything was overgrown? What was it about that time that saved me, that maybe he didn't have? So what came to mind is I talk about this sacred trinity of healing, right? And there's this triangle. And one arm of that triangle is the health of our body and how we take care of our body in injury or in disease. And a lot of times we know we need to see a doctor, and we know we need to exercise, and we know we need to use nutrition. Another arm of that triangle is our mental and emotional health, our well-being, our state of mind. And so in any situation where there's a lot of stress or we can't deal with things emotionally alone, we seek out professional help, right? So we seek out a doctor if it's physical health, and we seek out a counselor, a therapist if it's emotional mental health. And then there's this third arm, which is the spiritual arm, which is the seat of the soul, which is our heart center, the spirit of, and we need to heal that equally. So I started to think about that triangle, that sacred trinity of mind, body, spirit, and realize that in that moment where I was technically lost, that trinity was presenting itself. That I knew I was physically hurt. And so I knew I needed to care for my leg. And I did that by making sure that my leg had the ice cold water around it to slow the bleeding. I wrapped a tourniquet around it later after I found the trail again. I talked to my leg, you are okay, we can keep moving forward. And then there was my mental and emotional well-being of survival. And that had to be that I never once went into a place of fear. I was completely in a state of bliss because I was in shade, I had water, I was giggling. I mean, granted, that might have been shock, it might have been, heat stroke, but in a way it saved me, because I know that had I gone in a place of fear, I would have been paralyzed, right? I would have not been able to have moved. But then there was the third arm of spiritual, and I spoke out loud to the angels. I spoke out loud to my deceased uncle. I said to him, all right, Uncle Mike, once upon a time you didn't know where you were and you got lost. But now you see all. Get me the hell out of here. and then I'm, blopping around down this river, and sure enough, this one ravine, this one side of the hill was truly like it was illuminated. I walked across the river, forged the river, was able to climb out with these right angle trunks, popped up right onto the trail, oh my God, and then was able to find myself back to the car and was rushed to the hospital. The other thing that was really interesting is I kept saying out loud, I'm okay, I'm by the creek, I'm okay, I'm by the creek. And when I got back to the car, everyone was like, there you are, they've just sent a search party up. And all of these men, my husband, my uncle, and my brother, who had come down the mountain, had hiked a full 12 miles, turned around and hiked back up looking for me. And, but my brother said, you know what? I knew you were okay. I knew you were at the river. I mean, he spoke the exact same words that I was sending out, and he somehow picked up on them. So I guess the reason why we're talking is because I really wanted to share this with your audience, that if ever you find yourself in a situation that is frightening, try your best to not go into a place of fear, and to instead find in your environment that which is beautiful, that which is lovely, that which is glorious. Because, because you can't paralyze, you can't be so paralyzed that you can't be in a place to be able to receive what you need to do next. So,
yes.
So I just really wanted to share the extremes of what had happened to one person on the same trail to what happened to me, and how the two results were very different and yet potentially could have been the same.
Yes.
So.
Thank you. it's really very valuable feedback for the listeners, but it gave you a deepening even of your own experience, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And my own understanding, I mean, it's one thing for me to really talk and preach about healing the sacred Trinity, and it's another thing to really live it.
Exactly.
And through not just through health and well-being, but through survival.
Yeah.
And that and awareness. It all starts with awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm aware I'm physically okay. I am aware that I am safe and that I have water and shade, and I am aware that I can seek guidance and support from the spiritual plane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our wisdom comes from putting ideas into practice. And that was, it's like you just automatically did that without saying, okay, but a new person who hadn't thought about it before, taking that concept, can do it consciously and may have to do it consciously for a while, and then it becomes automatic. But that's how we gain in wisdom, is to try it on new concepts. So thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Trailblazer.
Thank you for giving me a place to share again.
Again, and we'll do it again, because life is like that. Thank you so much, hon. Blessings.
I love
Blessings,
you, Sharon. Thank you.